My mother told everyone I was unstable. Not directly to my face. Not in a conversation meant to help. She said it quietly, strategically, the way you say something when you want it to stick without ever having to prove it. She's been overwhelmed lately. She's not thinking clearly. I'm just worried about her mental health. At first, I didn't realize what she was doing. I thought she was concerned. I thought she was protecting me. I was wrong. Before I tell you how this unfolded, tell me something. Where are you listening from? Drop it in the comments. I ask because for a long time, I thought I was the only one living inside a story like this. My name is Rachel Miller, and for most of my adult life, I was the responsible one in my family, not the favorite, not the loudest, not the one people worried about, the reliable one, the one who paid bills on time, the one who answered calls, the one who fixed problems quietly so no one else had to feel uncomfortable. My mother, Diane, always said she admired that about me. What she really admired was how useful it made me. It started small. A comment here, a suggestion there. Rachel's just under a lot of stress. She works too much. She gets emotional when money is involved. The irony is, money was the one thing I was always calm about. Because I understood it. Because I managed it. Because, without ever announcing it, I had become the financial backbone of our family. I didn't move back home after college like my younger brother did. I didn't ask for help when I bought my first car. I didn't borrow when things were tight. Instead, I helped. I paid the property tax 1 year when my mother was between plans. I covered a medical bill when insurance messed up. I wired money when my brother needed just a little time. No one called it dependence. They called it family. Things changed the year my mother decided to organize her finances. She asked me to come over one afternoon, just the two of us. She made tea, sat across from me at the kitchen table, smiled the way she did when she was about to say something that sounded loving but wasn't. "I've been thinking about the future," she said, "and I want to make sure everything is secure." That word, secure. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, account summaries, notes in her handwriting. "I think it would be best if we simplified things," she continued. "You handle money well, but sometimes you take things too personally. I don't want you overwhelmed." I remember blinking. "What do you mean?" I asked. She reached across and squeezed my hand. "I mean, I've been talking to someone. Just casually. They agree it might be healthier if certain decisions weren't entirely on your shoulders anymore." That was the moment my stomach dropped. Not because I understood everything, but because I understood enough. She wasn't worried about me. She was laying groundwork. Over the next few weeks, the narrative shifted. Suddenly, people were checking in on me. Not to ask how I was, but to assess me. My aunt asked if I was sleeping okay. A family friend mentioned stress can make people irrational. My brother stopped asking me about money altogether. Instead, he started going through my mother. And then one night, accidentally, the truth surfaced. I was at my mother's house picking up mail she'd asked me to hold while she traveled. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was just tired. A notification lit up her tablet on the counter. A message preview. "I think we should move forward before Rachel realizes what's happening." My hands went cold. I shouldn't have looked. I did. It was a group message. My mother, my brother, and a lawyer I didn't recognize. They weren't discussing my well-being. They were discussing control. Who should manage which accounts? How to reduce conflict. How to protect the family from emotional decisions. From me, the same person who had quietly paid over $240,000 of family expenses in less than a decade. The same person they now described as unstable. I didn't confront her. I didn't cry. I took screenshots. and I did something I had never done before. I stopped fixing things. No transfers, no reminders, no quiet rescues. 2 weeks later, my mother called. Her voice was tight. "Rachel, we need to talk." I agreed, but this time, I came prepared. I met my mother 3 days later. She chose a cafe she liked, bright, public, neutral, a place where she could keep her voice soft and her image intact. She hugged me when I arrived, a quick squeeze, no warmth. "You look tired," she said immediately. There it was again, not concern, positioning. "I'm fine," I replied, sitting down. She ordered for both of us without asking. Chamomile for me, as if she still got to decide what calmed me. She folded her hands on the table and sighed. "I've been worried," she began. "You've been distant, and when people pull away like that, it usually means something's wrong." I looked at her calmly. "Something is wrong," I said, "just not with me." Her eyebrows lifted, the faintest flicker of irritation breaking through her practiced softness. "Rachel, I don't want this to turn into a confrontation," she said. "I just want to make sure we're all protected." "Protected from what?" I asked. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "From instability, from emotional decisions, from misunderstandings that can hurt everyone financially." Financially? That word again. "You mean money?" I said. She smiled, not kindly, strategically. "You've always been sensitive about money," she replied. "That's part of the problem." I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I asked a simple question. "Who told you I was unstable?" Her pause was half a second too long. "Well," she said carefully, "people notice things. Your brother mentioned you've seemed tense. The lawyer agreed it might be wise to prepare." "The lawyer you hired without telling me?" I asked. Her lips pressed together. "You see?" she said softly. "This is what I mean. You're reacting." That was the moment I understood something crucial. She wasn't afraid I would collapse. She was afraid I would see clearly. I reached into my bag and placed my phone on the table between us. "I know about the messages," I said, "the group chat, the plan." Her face froze. "I don't know what you think you saw," she began. "You discussed transferring control of accounts I fund," I continued. "You talked about moving forward before I realize what's happening." The cafe noise faded. For the first time, her mask cracked. "You read private messages," she snapped. "Messages about my life," I replied. "My money. My autonomy." She straightened, defensiveness sharpening into anger. "We were trying to help you," she said. "You don't see how much pressure you put on yourself. Always trying to be the hero." "I wasn't trying to be anything," I said quietly. "I was responding to need. Yours." Her voice rose just enough for nearby tables to glance over. "So now you're accusing me," she hissed. "After everything I've done for you." I held her gaze. "You taught me how to survive," I said. "You didn't teach me how to be safe." Her mouth opened, closed. "You're twisting this," she said finally. "And this tone, this coldness, it's exactly why we were concerned." I nodded slowly. "Good," I said. She blinked. "Good." "Yes," I replied. "Because now I don't have to pretend anymore." I stood, leaving my tea untouched. "I'm not unstable," I said. "I'm finished." She laughed sharply. "You think you can just walk away?" she asked. "You don't realize how much of this family depends on you." "I know exactly how much," I replied. "That's why this ends now." I walked out. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilt chasing my steps. I felt space. The fallout didn't come all at once. It trickled. A missed payment here, a bounce transfer there. Within a week, my brother called, not to ask how I was. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Mom said there's been an issue with the account." "I closed it," I said. Silence. "You... what?" he asked. "The shared account," I clarified. "The one I funded. It no longer exists." "You can't just do that," he said, panic creeping into his voice. "I can," I replied. And I did. He exhaled sharply. "This is exactly what Mom was worried about," he snapped. "You're acting emotionally." "No," I said. "I'm acting intentionally." He hung up. 2 days later, the lawyer emailed me. A polite message, a professional tone, requesting a meeting. I agreed. When I arrived, he looked uncomfortable. "Rachel," he said, folding his hands. "I want to be clear. I was given information that suggested you might not be in a position to make clear financial decisions." "And now?" I asked. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a compiled record. Every transfer, every bill paid, every emergency covered. The total at the bottom made even him pause. $247 and $380. "That's how much you contributed," he said quietly, "without legal obligation." "And that changes your assessment?" I asked. He nodded. "It changes everything," he admitted, "including the narrative." I leaned back. "Good," I said, "because I'd like it corrected." The correction didn't happen loudly. There was no confrontation dinner, no screaming match, just facts, revised documents, updated authority, a clear acknowledgement that I was not unstable, I was essential. And once that truth existed on paper, the accusations stopped. My mother didn't apologize. She didn't admit anything. She simply adjusted. She stopped calling me unstable, started calling me independent. A softer word for the same loss of control. Months later, she asked to meet again. This time, I chose the place, my apartment. She looked around when she arrived, eyes taking in the calm, the order, the lack of chaos she'd predicted. "You seem well," she said. "I am," I replied. She hesitated. "I never meant to hurt you," she said finally. "I know," I answered. "You meant to manage me." She flinched. "I don't need you to understand," I continued. "I just need you to stop." She nodded slowly. And for the first time, she did. I didn't cut my family off. I just removed myself from their control. I stopped funding dysfunction, stopped absorbing blame, stopped carrying narratives that were never mine. They didn't lose a daughter, they lost access, and I gained something far more valuable than approval. I gained my voice. So if you've ever been labeled too emotional, unstable, or difficult the moment you stopped being convenient, hear this. There is nothing wrong with you. There is something wrong with a system that only values you when you're silent. And the moment you stop holding everything together, you don't fall apart. You finally stand. The real shift didn't happen the day the lawyer corrected the paperwork. It didn't happen when the accounts were separated or when the numbers were finally acknowledged out loud. It happened weeks later, quietly, when no one was watching. I was standing in my kitchen one evening, washing a single plate, when I realized something unsettling. My phone hadn't buzzed all day. No requests, no emergencies. No subtle guilt disguised as concern, just silence. And instead of feeling lonely, I felt light. That was new. For most of my life, silence meant punishment, distance, disapproval. Now it meant peace. My brother stopped calling altogether. When we crossed paths at a family gathering months later, he was polite, distant, careful, like someone interacting with a system that no longer bends for them. My mother adjusted in her own way. She stopped asking for help and started asking questions instead. Neutral ones. Safe ones. How is work? Are you traveling much? Never money. Never control. Never my emotions. She had learned where the boundary was, and for the first time, she respected it. Not because she understood me, but because she understood the cost of crossing it. One afternoon, almost a year later, she came over unannounced. She stood in my doorway, holding a small box. "I was cleaning," she said. "I found this." Inside was a folder. Old documents, notes, receipts, things I'd paid for, covered, fixed. She handed it to me like an offering. "I didn't realize how much you carried," she said quietly. I looked at the folder, then at her. "I did," I replied. She nodded, eyes glassy. "I know." That was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get, and surprisingly, it was enough. Because by then, I didn't need validation. I had proof. Not just on paper, but in my body, my routines, my life. I stopped being described as unstable. People started calling me strong. Not the kind of strong that means take more, the kind that means won't break. I didn't rebuild my relationship with my family the old way. I rebuilt it on terms, clear ones. I no longer paid for problems I didn't create. I no longer softened truths to protect egos. I no longer accepted concern that came with strings attached. And something unexpected happened. When I stopped performing stability for others, I actually became stable. Sleep came easier. Decisions felt cleaner. My life stopped feeling like a series of emergencies disguised as love. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. People don't label you unstable because you are. They label you unstable when your clarity threatens their control. When you stop fixing everything, the system shakes. And the ones who benefited most from your silence will be the first to question your sanity. So if you're listening to this and you've been told you're too much, too emotional, or not thinking clearly the moment you stopped being convenient, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me earlier. You are not unstable. You are waking up. And waking up always looks dangerous to people who prefer you asleep. If this story felt familiar, you're not alone. And if you're standing at the edge of a boundary you're afraid to set, know this. The moment you stop holding everything together, you don't fall apart. You finally become whole.